And I think you've uncovered a great piece there, Humperdinck, which is, this industry, often that standardization, ways of doing things, you've got this groundswell of businesses trying to think about ESG almost, dare I say it, to tick a box to say, look, I've got a report. So rush in to maybe send documents out and data. And, I suppose there's a swathe of various information requests. But, when I look back at potentially where this industry could go, if you look at digitalization, you look at obviously the decarbonisation challenge of the here and now and the future, if we can get the industry working in some consistent ways, and actually not just doing the basics for the basics' sake, but what are those key questions that a business needs to go through, regardless of what size or scale, in a set kind of process and methodology. Because I go back to my earlier opening around, I would have a bet that there's a lot of businesses got a lot more suppliers in their supply chain now than what they had before COVID because of the availability challenge. So they're perhaps sat there going, I know I need to do some work on it. Where do I start? Oh my gosh, I've got all this information coming in. So I think the approach you've described there around having a consistent methodology, and the expertise actually in what I've already described can be seen as a complex area. I think so. Potentially is a real opportunity to accelerate this industry. So how would you say the industry's competing or shaping up against others? Because the building industry hasn't always had the best plaudits and press in terms of how it kind of operates and faces into change.
Well, so there's a lot you just touched on there. I think the construction industry, the UK construction industry, is a leader. It's still far behind the Dutch in terms of the strict application of the environment. But it's really, really progressive. And there are many true leaders out there in the UK. But what we really need to focus on here is, you used the phrase, is tick box exercise, because this process is not a tick box exercise. This is actually getting down into the nitty gritty as to how the business is run, and how can the business add value to itself, to grow, to be better funded, to be the more preferred supplier. Tick box exercise, it's kind of like CSR, CSR across the construction industry. But CSR very much, and not always, has been this fluffy, lots of pithy statements on the website. Oh, we look after our people. Oh, we're so good. But there's no evidence. ESG has to be understood as, this is your single point of reporting for everything your organization does well. Your quality standards, perhaps you're an investors in people, you manage pollution, you manage waste, and you have had no fatalities on site, and. And then to say, how do we actually make this add value to the business? One way, take energy, carbon footprint reporting. Pretty well everybody in business has heard of carbon footprint reports now. Carbon footprint reporting is the measure. It's like looking in at the fuel gauge in your car and saying, I can drive another 150 miles until I need to fill up or recharge. That's fact. ESG is about the action plan. What do I need to do to improve? And how can I quantify that? So you take carbon footprint reporting. It's like Peter Drucker, the marketer, said, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. You know you're spending energy. You know you're paying more for timber and whatever from wherever. But until you actually quantify it, how can you possibly reduce your energy costs or buy more effectively? And if your supply chain has risk, if you don't know where this, architectural fitting, this lumber, whatever, you don't know how and where it was produced, how do you know that you're not down the road going to run into some colossal headache, whether that's in the HS2 project, somebody realized that actually this particular steel rebar they were using manufactured in appalling conditions in China, even though they purchased it, the contractor purchased this rebar through France. It's knowing your supply chain. Yeah. So that at the end...
That's what I was describing. Yeah, that's what I was describing earlier in terms of actually knowing where that product comes from. And I think, back to that approach and that consistency for a business, because, there's one thing understanding where you are, isn't there? We've talked about that. There's another about setting those clear, tangible actions that are going to enable you to, improve consistently. This isn't big bang, right, I fixed it all, because, no business works like that. But I think having that systemized approach, and as you've said, thinking potentially that you've actually got a robust supply chain, only to find out, and I've seen factories around the world, so I can picture exactly what you said there about the rebar. You have to be very, very careful that there isn't something sinister lurking, around the world in terms of where you're sourcing from. So
and Keith, we do a lot of work with one of the major fit out corporations in the UK. Prestigious brand, wonderful track record, many years. You can't fault them, totally professional. And their clients include the big fashion brands as well. They also work very occasionally on highly prestigious domestic, privately owned estates, for the very, very wealthy, but primarily they're a commercial fit-out company. Their clients are grilling them on their sustainability practices. So it's a case of you must. And this particular client, by undertaking their ESG reporting, is very much solidifying their place in the industry, because they're a year ahead of any competitor, and that's got to count. Who is this if you have a socially conscious buyer, or a buyer representing a very socially conscious brand, who are they going to gravitate towards? There's the value add. So the fees, the costs of doing all of this are not very high at all. For the very small business, there's maybe 60 questions we have to understand about that business of 15 or 20 people. 65 questions is not a lot.
It's not
just answering the questions. Yeah, it's not just answering those 65 questions. It's about how we then validate that data. So we produce a report. For the organization of 500 people, it can be 300 or 400 questions. It varies. And with certain questions, there's an evidence phase. Give you an example. My favorite example. One of the questions, and this is all based on globally established ESG reporting frameworks, such as the GRI. It's the only truly universal framework. So a very typical question, do you, the company, have an anti-discrimination policy? Yeah, most people say, yes, we do. There are worryingly some people who Haven't got a clue. Next question. Is it published on your website? Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's an easy fix, right? Next question. Do you conduct training on anti-discrimination? Let's say they say yes. But the next question is, please supply your training register. Who has been trained and when? Most businesses fall on their faces at this point. They've got the process. They've ticked the boxes before, but they haven't actually delivered. That doesn't actually hurt your ESG rating. You're not going to fail the process. It's not like an ISO 27001 IT assessment. It's a sliding scale. No, we have not conducted training, but in the action plan, over the course of the coming year, we intend to deliver that. That's a result. That is an honest and transparent answer. And then the next year, the reporting says, have you delivered your training on anti-discrimination? If not, why not? Okay. It solved the problem.
Yeah.
So our role in this is then to help the client and say, well, look, we have a packaged anti-discrimination training course you can deliver. It takes about half an hour. You don't even need a consultant to deliver it, although we offer that as well. So you've done more than tick the box. You've actually delivered a quantifiable thing.
Yeah.
And that's a positive.
No,